different hat this year, being the defensive coordinator. He said that he was excited to kind of roll his sleeves up, really get into it a little more. How have you seen him change, even though it's early on still?
I don't know if I've seen any change. I think he could probably comment about how he feels about the experience, but it's just been great to have his voice in there. Continue to get on the same page with him in terms of philosophically what he expects, from the defense and how he wants to put his thumbprint on it. But much like everything else, he was heavily involved in the past as well. Maybe a little bit more now, but really not that much more. And just continuing to echo his philosophy and his expectations and how he wants the defense to look, how he wants it to be coached, and continuing to get us to coach and play at a high level.
I don't remember what game it was, but there was a pregame where you walked by down in the field. Poirier was hurt. I was hurt. Tre'Davious wasn't bad. You laughed us out. We'll be fine. Just kind of laughed it off. Have you ever been through a season like last year with just the amount of injuries that group went through?
If I can remember correctly, I don't think it was on the sideline. I think it might have been on the street when we were in Miami when I was walking by in the morning on a morning walk.
That's what it was. Yeah,
Right. I was trying to clear my thoughts and clear my head, trying to figure out how we were going to go out there and beat the Dolphins with who we had. But, when you sign up for the job, especially in the NFL, as competitive it is, you go out there with whoever you have. And I think we've embraced in the past, even though maybe in the previous years we haven't had to use as much of our depth, but our job is to get everybody ready. And, in that game specifically, whether it was Jamarcus Ingram played in the game, Christian Benford broke his hand, Kyer had to play, Cam was playing, Taron Johnson was playing, Damar. I mean, that was our rotation. Really, the only steady hand there as far as experience was Taron Johnson. But, that is what it is. It's just the nature of the league. And if you're coaching them and you're playing, they got to be ready to play.
John, speaking of Damar, just knowing how far he's come in the 5 months, 5+ months, and to see him on the sideline, individual work, stretching, what's that mean to you as a coach and knowing, what this kid's going to do?
I think when you really when you think about Damar's what really happened, and where he's come from there, it's a miracle. It's amazing that he's able to get out here and do what he's been doing and be involved in all the meetings. I know we all, from each step of his progression to get back to where he's at, he's still got a little bit of ways to go, but just with each step, the players and the coaches embracing him and the journey that he's on that is unique only to him, what he's going through. So to have him out there, like in the drills, in the walkthrough, in the meetings, just around day to day, I think it's incredible, and just continuing to look forward to how many more steps he's going to take to get to where he eventually wants to get to. I'm just proud to be his coach and proud to be a part of that experience and help him physically, mentally, and then on the field however we can.
What is that like communication between making sure he's comfortable as he goes through this process and also having that communication? Just what is that like at this point as he's trying to get there?
Right. This is Damar's process. This is not the process of the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, it's an unprecedented situation that he's going through, and all we can do is listen, communicate with him, and try to get on the same level as him, which he's been great with, and we've been great with, and that process will continue to play itself out. But based on where it's going, I think he's definitely heading in the right direction.
Whether it's Damar's situation and all the other injuries last year, what did you learn about that group, and what did you learn about yourself going through something like that?
I think what I learned about all of us really collectively is we always talk about no matter what we're doing in the secondary, we have myself, now it's Joe Dana, Al Holcomb are working with our secondary coaches, but we're all doing this together. Like all we ever hit on is the together mindset, or you're never out there by yourself. When you're playing, and this is Tre'Davious White's not out there by himself, Mike Hyde's not just like that, or the rookies, they're not out there by yourself. You can't do it all by yourself. So the experience taught us that, one, the NFL is going to keep playing, and the games are going to keep coming, and the teams are going to be really good. So we just got to commit ourselves to the process of getting better, and understanding you're developing the number 1 DB in your group all the way to we have 17 now, and you're putting the time into each one of them. And I'm proud of the way we responded and persevered. And whoever played, I thought played at a good enough level, obviously, to get us to the playoffs, and that's where we got to. But that's not unexpected. Football's a violent game that That's why we're always trying to get everybody ready.
Other
On
player,
that note, Coach, it's so rare to have two players like Micah and Jordan at their level together for so long in the secondary. You've been a part of that with them. How much can they be a part of that process in it together with you, especially when you're onboarding other people along the way?
Right. It's critically important that, we've developed, not only Micah and Jordan, but Taron Johnson, guys that, Tre'Davious, they've played, 5.5, 6 seasons when you kind of accumulated all football together. So we're always talking about it's 1,500 reps a year. That's thousands of reps in the preseason, in off season. And they're a sounding board as much as we're telling them what to do. It's constant communication, feedback. Are they comfortable with where we're headed schematically, even fundamentally? But I think there's a strong level of trust there too, that they know that we're doing our best to put them in position. We're doing our best to develop them fundamentally, physically, and mentally. So there's a trust level that when things need to be decided and moved on, they're going to do it, and they're going to then be our advocates in the locker room, whether it's myself or Sean's advocates in the locker room, to keep heading this thing in the right direction as far as the secondary is concerned, but with Micah and Jordan and Taron, like the leaders of our defense too, to kind of continue to push, Sean's message as the head coach, defense, whatever, to the team and to the defense.
What, if anything, changes for you with Leslie not being here this year in terms of maybe added responsibilities or anything like that?
Nothing. Nothing's really changed. It's just all hands on deck, quite frankly. They're just Sean's asking that we always, we are giving as much as we can to the process. We've always been very vocal and informed, and also part of putting the game plan together, developing and evaluating our personnel, and really what just comes down to is less called to defenses on game day. But there's tons of input, whether it's myself or Bobby Babbage through the years, Eric Washington, as the primary position coaches really last year. We all have an input and a say, so that's not changed. And I don't think it's going to necessarily change in the future. It's just going to be Sean calling it in.
Sean McDermott earlier today, he was saying, OTAs is shirts and hats. There's only so much we can actually accomplish on the field right now. But in terms of team building, as a position coach, what can you guys accomplish right now as you're all together out there?
Right. There's nothing like actually playing football. It's, growing up, we all played a bunch of different sports, but the game of football is different. It's 11 guys, especially on defense. You're trying to get them on every single play to act as one. And I coach the secondary, so I'm trying to get on every play 5 guys operating as one. And when you're out there in situations like today against a very challenging offense with great quarterback and great schemes, and they're moving around, it's just they're testing us. And so there's nothing like being tested in the fire. Phase 1 is walking through and doing that stuff, and then phase 2, a little bit more on the field, but really phase 3 and then really training camp is where you're really able to test yourselves as a defense, as a secondary, because the physical element of it, the competition element of it is huge, because now they're out there competing against their locker mates, and it gets competitive, and sometimes you're being tested mentally. So to me, I always tell them there's nothing like getting out on the field in a competitive environment to test yourself fundamentally, physically, and then obviously as a defense, test our schemes.
Micah and Jordan, and then add a guy like Taylor Rapp, who started a lot of games in this league. What's your impressions been of him early on and just adding him to that?
Taylor has been nothing but professional. Obviously, he understands he's walking into a room with tons of experience, but with his toughness and football IQ and experience, as well as we feel like he's a versatile player. We love guys that have a versatile background, just in the concept of their ability to play man, ability to play zone, their ability to tackle, their ability to play the ball. I think he's been a great addition to us and has fit in well, not only just from a football player perspective, but culturally, from a guy that just kind of is exactly what we're looking for from a football DNA standpoint.
What are some of those things that he does well on the field that you like when it was reviewing film or even seeing him now in these early stages of practice?
Right, he's a physical kid, which in the game of football, you got to be physically, meaning tough. He's physical. He's tackles. He's aggressive. He has an aggressive mindset. The thing that I've been impressed with in the short time that I've worked with him is just his movement. For a guy that where he came from, just evaluating him, getting hands-on, seeing his footwork and his pad level and the DB-specific movements, I think he's been outstanding. And then he's just continuing to kind of embrace our scheme. because obviously every scheme in the NFL is, while being somewhat similar, they are different, and that's been the transition, the language, the techniques, the fundamentals that I think is, Joe Dana's doing a great job with him, our new safety coach, and he'll continue to do that, just spending that time and working with him to carve out a niche, and we'll see where that goes.
Coach, what are your expectations year two for Kyer and Christian?
I think they both had very good rookie years. They were challenged in ways that, obviously played a lot of football. Early, Christian playing probably more than maybe he expected early, but playing well enough. And then having an injury and having to kind of sit back and decompress and maybe see things from a 10,000-foot view instead of just being thrown in the fire. And he's come back after having a great offseason, has had 2 really good practices. Kyer, same thing. Kid loves football. Obviously played a lot as a rookie. They both obviously still have tremendous amount of opportunities to improve in the future, and we hope that they'll continue to develop and compete for opportunities to play. No worries.
With Kyer specifically, where do you see the biggest difference from this point last year to now, whether it's football, personality, anything? Like, what stands out to you?
I think the biggest thing is just the comfort level. We always say that when you come back in OTAs, it's really the 3rd time you've heard this class. We're not teaching a new class every year. We're in college, but it's football, and then we teach them the same thing, and then we teach them the same thing, and then we're going over the same defenses. Well, now this is his 3rd time hearing it. Off-season program last year, training camp, through all the season, and now here you go again. And I'm not changing how I coach, or what I'm coaching, and therefore he's now hearing it a 3rd time, and it's just that consistent soak, I think, has made him more comfortable so that he can understand not only my language, but maybe my intensity sometimes this is how we do it here, and this is the expectations, and then that'll allow him to continue to play with a little bit more freedom, and which then allows him to showcase his skills a little bit more.
With Benford, both Brandon and Sean have talked about the possibility of him playing some safety. I'm not asking you whether that will or won't happen, but what is it maybe about his game that, I guess, leaves that possibility open if you guys did decide you wanted to do it?
Right now, Christian's playing corner for us, and he's doing a nice job competing with really Kyer and Dane for that number 2 spot next to Tre'Davious. That's the job he's working at exclusively right now, nowhere else. But as I alluded to, I think when I was talking about Rapp, I've always personally valued, and I think the organization does value players with just versatility, schematically, but also mentally, that can handle how fast things move, and just kind of go in there and have the ability to do different things, different techniques, or maybe even possibly different positions. So as I said, Christian's a corner right now, but he's got size, he's got movement, he's got strength, and he's got a very good football brain that you have to have that in order to be a guy that's even considered to do that.
With Tre'Davious, Sean spoke to his determination earlier. As he has a full offseason this year, what have you seen from him over the past few weeks and months as he tries to work his way back to that all-pro level?
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily see anything different, because Tre has always been, coaching 10 years in the NFL, I would argue that he probably is the hardest working DB I've ever been around, just as far as like the true, some people talk about process, like this dude is grinding all the time, physically, on his body, physically with his fundamentals, so he's always been that way. I think now, just kind of like I alluded with Kyer, it's just now he's just another offseason away from that injury. Now he can really focus on developing himself as a football player, maybe not as much worried about maintenance and taking care of himself and his knee. So I don't know if I necessarily think different. I just think that now he can really focus on being back on the field, kind of being involved with the coaching and those types of things, and the language and the terminology. So the more he's back out there, the more comfort level he'll feel. Also maybe not the pressure, but getting thrown in there 10th week of the season. Now we're playing games where maybe he can refine his techniques and fundamentals a little more as we head through OTAs and into training camp. The beauty of Dane and a lot of our guys is that incredibly tough kid, mentally tough, physically tough. Like, the injury he had in that game, that Titans game, it was a real scare for him. And then to be back out there pretty quickly after that and being thrown in the fire again just speaks to his mental fortitude and his toughness. And, you know, obviously since he's been here, when we picked him in the 7th round, I believe, it was purely off of football DNA and toughness. And then what we got, we realized, is a really good athlete that's competitive as hell. And that's what he's shown ever since he's been here. And he's had a great offseason, knowing that obviously everybody's competing for that spot and maybe what might be perceived as his spot. But I can't say anything other than Dane is an incredibly tough guy that's been reliable for us. He's played a lot of football in the NFL over really the last 3.5 years, and on a really good defense. And hopefully he continues to do that.